This is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I'm Brent Jackson.
Okay, little delayed there. Brent you're in Florida right now, aren't you?
I'm in Florida at tennis camp.
You're at not your tennis camp for your son, right?
No, little guys.
Yeah, nice. Today we have Jamie Manning on the show. Jamie Manning is the owner, proprietor of Exposed Brick DC, which is one of the most popular real estate blogs in probably existence right now. She's been doing that for a while. She also has a ton of real estate experience, and she's been on our show before. You were one of our first guests last year when we started the show. And thank you for coming back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And we thought it would be fun today to have you back. We can obviously talk about whatever we're going to talk about, but one of your things that you do on your social media, which, by the way, you're crushing it on social media.
Thank you.
You've got incredible Instagram followers, and you've started doing some great stuff on TikTok as well. We were just chatting about what you do on TikTok. At first, I thought it was kind of quirky. You go to a lot of open houses, right?
Right.
Yeah, you visit a lot of open houses and you shoot some footage, and then you're using just random, odd trending audio.
Yeah, it's trending audio. It's not completely random.
It's trending.
Yeah, it's trending. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you, like, how did you? Because there are lots of real estate TikTok accounts. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to do sort of the quirky comedy style?
I mean, I think that I've seen a lot on TikTok in terms of strategies for growth, and everyone says, oh, you have to use trending audio. And I don't know if this goes back to my days as being an English major, but it's almost like I think of it like a writing prompt. Mm-hmm. So the audio, is alluding to something like, oh, I don't like this, or, oh, isn't this crazy? And that kind of gets the wheels turning in terms of, oh, how could I apply this to real estate? So it helps me kind of have more of a framework when making the videos, and they feel less random to me because I have the audio is guiding the messaging, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
But so what I do on TikTok. I do a lot of walkthroughs where I do a voiceover, and then I was thinking, what you're doing is getting traction. Obviously, mm-hmm. It takes commitment and a lot of consistency, mm-hmm. and it's getting traction. So I started thinking about, it's kind of hard to keep track of the trending audios and to be creative on how to use those.
Right. And so you have to spend a good amount of time just watching other people's TikToks to see what audio they're using.
Right.
So I don't feel as bad wasting time on TikTok because I'm like, oh, this is research. Yeah. I'm figuring it out. But it's funny because I know that your sort of walkthroughs, they do really well on TikTok. Mine do not. So I don't know why that is.
Have you done...
I don't do voiceovers you do. Yeah. So, and I think that that's where a lot of the value is.
But we were also just chatting about on Instagram, you have your rhythm, where we talked about this in the last time you were on, about how you have your schedule set up, mm-hmm. and how you're very consistent about what and how you post, and mm-hmm. that kind of sets up your week for you. And on TikTok, you're like, where are my followers? You're looking for more followers.
Right, yeah, and I don't know how to get people to follow me on TikTok, which I think it's because I don't show my face and because I don't do voiceovers. Like, I think one of the reasons why your TikTok has been so successful is that people want to see you. They want to know your opinion. And I haven't really crossed that line on TikTok. It's just kind of me being silly.
Well, I've
always
always told...
How long have you been on TikTok?
Not very long. Maybe 6 months. Maybe.
That's not that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's like, it can happen overnight too. Like, you could get one viral major video, mm-hmm. and that's probably happened. I think you had one that was recently picked up by Washingtonian Probs.
Right. So I have videos that are in the hundreds of thousands of views,
right.
But people, I guess they see it and maybe they think it's funny or interesting, but not interesting enough to follow me. Which may be because the content isn't consistent. It's all just kind of like one-off jokes or things that I see.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just brainstorming. Obviously, one of the things that you do really well with Instagram and your blog is it's always like the value add for the consumer or the viewer, mm-hmm. and you're really good at explaining things and curating what it is that you like about a piece of property or a property, and on TikTok you're not quite doing the same thing.
Totally. And
right.
I think, like, I know people encourage you to like cross promote your content. Like, you know, if you make something for Instagram, then post it on TikTok. But in my personal like experience, I've just found that or content performs differently on different platforms. So like what I think is like great on TikTok won't perform on Instagram and vice versa.
Totally.
So I don't know, it's tricky.
Brent, do you have anything?
No, because I am a TikTok novice. I think I have 7 videos, and they're all like random hodgepodge kids dancing. I've got one with Dr. Dre and little girl driving a like little 4-wheeler, Matchbox car out on the street. So it's totally a mess.
It's a mess. Well, so the idea of our concept for today's show, I thought it would be a good idea to have you back and do an Ask Me Anything. That's one of the things that you do on your Instagram, on your stories. You will shoot out an Ask Me Anything all call and call to action, and you get a ton of questions, and you're really good at just banging them out, getting those answers for people, adding the value to the consumer immediately, immediate gratification.
Yeah, I know, and I need to do a better job of turning those questions into like blog posts or some evergreen content that people can go back to, because it's so easy to just hop on stories and write out a response, but then it's gone.
Well, but to be fair to that though, if in all of these different genres of whatever we're doing, whether it's residential real estate, it could be real estate investing, it could be stock market, these same topics live on, right? So if you keep touching them, like people are always looking for the fresh content anyway.
Right.
So if you're repeating yourself and telling the same kind of story over and over again, you will have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I think that that's true. And, there'll be a question that will come up and I'm like, I feel like I just answered that like a month ago. But I need to realize, not the same people are seeing it. They're new people. So it's
Absolutely.
like you said, it's okay to repeat yourself.
And it's the same thing I think that I'm finding on the podcast. I mean, Brent and I are like broken records. We're the same people we were last week and the week before that. So sometimes the same stories come up, and I'm like, I just told that story, but it's okay.
Right. It's fine.
It's contextual.
Yes. Totally agree.
So Ask Me Anything. So
Yes.
You put a call out on your Instagram earlier this week to pull in a bunch of questions for today's show. I haven't really looked at them at all. Brent, have you looked at these?
No, I've been totally slammed with work and to and from tennis and all that jazz. I
All right.
wanted it cheap, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I didn't look either. So if we might roundtable some of these, and then if they're more for Jamie, then she can answer them. So let's see. Number 1, how do people view co-ops in DC? It seems like they are cheaper per square foot than condos. How do people view co-ops in DC? Jamie, go ahead.
Well, I feel like you guys are going to have more of a knowledge base on this than I will. But I think at first blush, if you don't know, the real estate market, you are going to see, oh, these are cheaper. This is great. I'm going to go after that. But I think people don't realize that the form of ownership is different, and that's what accounts for the fact that the prices vary. But I'll let you guys kind of break down. I actually did a blog post about this,
Okay.
but I feel like you guys are more the experts in this.
Brent?
So my take on this is you're exactly right. I think that DC in general does not understand the co-op regime and the ownership that what that insists. You're owning a piece of paper with the right to live in a particular space. New York City's different. Last time I read, it was like 70% of the buildings up there are in a co-op regime. So people understand that up there. DC does not, and because of that, there's a discount on the price. I think lenders don't quite have an understanding of it in DC. The buyers don't, and as a result, we do quite a bit of co-ops in Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
And from my experience, it's about 30% cheaper on a co-op. So if you're buying something for $100,000, it's about 70 cents on the dollar down in Southwest. With that being said, we did just set a record in Southwest Harbor Square, unique unit, 2,300 square feet, overlooking the water from every single window. And we got $850 a square foot. So I think unique in any submarket is going to be trading close to fair market value. But that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I think my take on it is that the co-op values definitely lag condo values in DC, and when markets shift, for example, the co-ops usually get hit first in DC. But I will also say that just like you're saying, Brent, there are co-op units in DC that are unique to what they are. There's some beautiful co-op buildings, such as on Connecticut Avenue in Calorama. There's 1661 Crescent, and like the one you're talking about in Southwest. Those are exclusive buildings, and the units in those buildings only exist in those buildings. So if there's a buyer looking for that lifestyle and wants that type of space, they will be buying in a co-op. But the average smaller co-op buildings like the ones on 17th Street, there's a really strange one on Ontario Place or somewhere over in Morgan. Yeah, it's a little bit of an acquired taste, I guess.
But also, back to your comment, Brent, about lenders, isn't it true that there's only like a handful of lenders in DC that will even lend on co-ops?
Correct, and it's usually the big banks like a Wells Fargo or Chase or one of those banks that, from my experience, they usually have more issues, regardless if it's a condo, a fee simple, or co-op, because those decision makers are not local. So it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be someone in New York City, down in Charlotte, or some other jurisdiction where, the deal goes sideways as soon as the paper's written from the buyer and the seller.
All right, let's move on. Um, Number 2, buying a house when prices keep rising is stressful. What can I do to save more and be ready? Jamie?
So that's a good question. I think this isn't a direct answer to the question, but I feel like everybody's putting a lot of pressure on themselves right now to try and buy something. And I think for so long, it's been associated, this is the American dream. You got to buy a house. And our parents, they bought their houses when, they were in their 20s or 30s, and I'm behind. So I think that I want to kind of talk about that more on the blog, that we shouldn't put so much pressure on ourselves. Like, the environment is so different now. And owning a home isn't the only way to feel like you're successful in life.
That's very fair and true. Brent, what do you think?
My take on this is, I don't know when this question came in, but it's interesting because the market seems to be going sideways right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I think buyers can be opportunistic in what they want to find. And what I've always told buyers, even for the last 18, 24 months, is unless it's your end all be all house, it's your legacy home that you're going to transfer down for generations to come. Yes, maybe you overpay, but otherwise, don't get crazy and be patient. My keywords for the last 2 years: be patient. The right house will come along at the right time. You just got to wait for it.
My thoughts on this are, Jamie, I kind of agree with you. I think people definitely put a lot of pressure on themselves to make this happen. And in that, previous market environment, towards, let's just say, like maybe basically like end of 2020 until the early part of this year, where prices were inflating quite quickly because of supply and demand, super low interest rates kind of fueling all of that. People definitely putting a lot of pressure on themselves in situations that maybe they otherwise would not have found themselves in.
I agree.
And I don't, and I think that there are also a lot of people who were purchasing homes that, I mean, you can read about it in the New York Times or whatever else. People purchased homes that they're like, wait, I don't even know why I bought this.
Right, because there was just so much pressure.
So much pressure. Yep. People thinking they're going through the big lifestyle changes, but, then life sort of comes back to quote unquote normal, and here we are again, right?
Right, totally.
And then Brent, I agree. People can be patient and wait for the best opportunity for them, and try to stay within the realm of reality instead of aiming for shooting the moon every time, right? So, but yeah, I mean, the market has changed a little bit over the last couple months. It's definitely flattened out a little bit. I'm not trying to be the self-fulfilling prophecy here by putting this out into the world, but it is definitely not as insane as it was before.
No, I agree. And do you think prices are going to come down? This is the $1 million question.
Literally. Brent, what do you think? Do you think prices will come down?
I don't know that prices will come down. I think that prices will, because the other underlying tone here is inventory. So there's not a gluttony of inventory on the market, and there's not a lot of stuff coming on, not a lot of new builds. So I think prices will remain flat. I don't think you're going to see, well, my neighbor got $1 million. Now I'm going to ask for 1,025,000 or 1,050,000. I think it's your neighbor got 1 million, you put yours on for 1 million, and maybe you get 990, 980, something like that. Case in point, a different jurisdiction, but we own places down here in Florida, And I was looking at Delray inventory last year. There was like one place on the market from the Causeway to the ocean, from Linton up to George Bush. That's a very small niche territory in Delray Beach, Florida. One place on the market last year. Now there's like, I think there was like 15. I went to six broker opens yesterday, ranging from like $1 million all the way up to 7.5. So again, across the all sub markets in the U.S., inventory is going up. Prices seem to be, for the places that I play in, relatively flat.
Yeah. Whenever I do comps or attempt to do comps for a purchase, and I'm looking at previous sales for the last 6 months, and I try to keep it at like a tight geographic location, whether it's in DC or Northern Virginia or Bethesda, I'm amazed at how few sales occurred in all these mini sub markets in this area, especially for houses. So, and you're looking at one house that just came on the market, and you're looking at maybe 3 or 4 sales in the last 6 months that made sense to sort of try to comp this out in some way. So it's still a supply and demand issue, I think, for the city and a lot of the submarkets. But yeah, Florida, I don't know as well. You definitely look around there a lot more, Brent, and I think the inventory is picking up in some pockets. So,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I just think like the buyer pool probably at this point has gotten so much smaller. So yes, there's still a lack of supply, but the people in which they could buy that supply have maybe halved at this point. So I feel like there has to be some sort of leveling out because that's happened.
Yep. We've got Jamie Manning on the show today. Jamie Manning from Exposed Brick DC. We're doing some Ask Me Anything questions. We got number 3. Oh my God, no questions, but I love you and Max on TikTok.
That's awesome.
That was my question.
Oh, thank you. He could have put that in there. We wouldn't know, right?
Yeah, that's true. It was planted.
Right. Number 4. Have you encountered buyers just looking to Airbnb the place out? I'm not sure the phrasing on that, but what do you think that? Have you encountered buyers just looking to Airbnb the place out? So purchase an Airbnb.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I guess
all right.
somebody looking for a strictly investment property.
I have definitely had some buyers who somewhere in their mind they were like, oh, this would make a great Airbnb, but I don't know that I've worked with any buyers recently who were strictly looking for that type of investment. Brent, have you had any like Airbnb
Not recently.
Okay.
Especially since DC, the laws have changed, and it seems like, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I want to say it was May or June where the DC law went into effect, and you had to live in the property if you were going to Airbnb it out. And from a couple developers told me that there was quite a few properties that hit the market in that same time frame just because they couldn't lease the places out under Airbnb. But before that, like I guess 3 or 4 years ago, we did have quite a few buyers, especially asking about condos. Can I Airbnb this out immediately? But recently, I have not had any buyers ask about Airbnb.
Okay. Number 5, for people early in the process, what's the best resource to learn about buying? Exposed Brick DC.
That's what I was going to say. That's
Obviously.
so funny.
Yeah. I think the best resource to learn about buying. So sometimes when we are receiving leads from different sources for really fresh buyers, they don't really know what to do at all. They don't know who they're going to have a conversation with, or if they want to have a conversation, or some salesman is going to like get on their case or something. I think a lot of people still feel that way about talking to realtors.
Right.
I think either getting referred to a good realtor, someone that's worked with someone you know, and having personal experience, sort of transferable personal experience, is probably the best resource to talk to a realtor, to understand the whole process and to get connected. I guess I can understand why people may not want to put that kind of pressure on themselves, that they then go talk to a realtor and they might want to read about it some more. I mean, I guess I would say your blog again, because there's a lot of resources there.
Yeah, I feel like I need to come up with some sort of like playbook or like infographic, exactly to your point, that people don't know who the players are. Like I did a blog post about like contingencies and what each contingency means. But yeah, I think that there needs to be some sort of central resource where it's really sort of broken down in a way that's easy to understand, because it's complex.
Can be complex and a little daunting.
Yeah.
Brent, do you have any like aces in the hole for resources?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with realtors. And I think going to Jamie's blog site, Exposed Brick, is a great resource for new buyers. But I'd go a little bit deeper. I'm sure someone's got a friend or a relative that just bought. So start with them, find out what experience they had from start to finish with contingencies or no contingencies, the urgency to make a decision within like 2 hours, who their realtor was, who the lender was, all that jazz. And then from there, you can start to build your, uh, I guess, your circle of influence from the realtor to the lender, start interviewing those people. And to your point, Max, get information from a couple different realtors, a couple different lenders.
And to the consumers who, I have initial conversations with buyers from time to time, and they're like, okay, thank you for explaining the process. And then by nature and by business, I follow up, and no one ever emails me back sometimes.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and shoot me an email and say, hey,
Yeah.
I'm not really doing anything right now. It's okay.
Right.
Just don't leave me hanging.
I agree. Yeah, getting ghosted is not
Ghosted.
fun in whatever industry you're in.
No matter what you're doing, ghosted doesn't work. Okay, now this is a question I can't answer it. I don't know if any of us can answer it because we all have real estate licenses. Best DC neighborhood to buy for single women. That's an absolute no way can I answer that question. So
Well, there is a way, right?
how?
So you dance around it, right? So it's like, for me, and again, watch me lose my license after this episode. No, but it's like someone asked me that question, and it's like, what about Capitol Hill? Do you like it? And I'm like, well, my wife lives here. We pushed the buggy car or the baby carriage from here to Barracks Row up to Eastern Market. And then the other thing I say is, if it's a single female, I'm like, chat with your friends, see what they think about the neighborhood. Maybe come back here at night at 9 o'clock, walk the neighborhood, because you're in an urban setting. Doesn't matter if you're here or if you're over in Georgetown. You want to be comfortable in the morning. You want to be comfortable at night.
One side anecdote that I'll mention, I remember that like someone said, maybe you should come by here at night. Some agent said this to a buyer, and they went by at night, and something terrible happened.
Oh,
this is a story from
no.
about 10 years ago.
Oh, no.
We were talking about this in one of our office meetings, and I think it might have still been Fred Kendrick, who is our office manager, leading the meeting. He's like, so yeah, I would advise against probably not saying that either.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's a different opinion. I think I would still do it.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to include this question because I wanted you both to say that it's not something that agents can really talk about. And I don't think that people realize that agents are, prohibited from doing that or answering that kind of question. And I think it's also a hard question to answer because not all single women like the same thing or want the same things. So I always kind of avoid answering those questions because everybody's different.
Everybody's different.
That's a great answer.
Everybody's different. Everyone likes different things. If they didn't like different things, how would we sell all these places in all these different neighborhoods?
Right.
So, all right. 7. Do you think interest rates will swing up again before the end of the year? Jamie?
I mean, so what are they at right now? 5.5?
I don't know. They're like in the 5s.
I've heard that they're going to hit 6. I think they'll hit 6 this year.
Okay. I think they were around 6 for a second.
Yeah, I think they were too.
Brent, how high are we going?
Same. I think they'll go back up to 6, and then I think they'll come back down around the holidays for people to, get out their pocketbooks and ready to go shopping.
I love
think
that.
it'll go up and down for the next little bit.
Just inject some money into the stock market right in time for the holidays, and then crank the interest rates down just so everyone can feel a little cheer and before we just... Right. Okay. Number 8. All cash blows my mind. Do you think people end up financing it later? All right. First of all cash. That's one thing that you blog about and talk about on your Instagram a lot is another all cash deal. I know you like to scare people.
Oh,
Look
yes.
at this. It's another all cash deal.
Yes.
All cash. I mean, I have buyers that have the money. What can I say? They have it. And
where did they get it?
Working hard, not spending it all on other things.
Yeah.
I have a buyer right now. We just put an offer in on a condo, and it's just under $1 million. The offer's all cash, and each of the couple, the husband and wife, each of them, one's an attorney, and the other one was an attorney, but is now in. She's a psychologist now.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they each have like private practices. They don't have children, and they earn a lot per hour with their respective businesses, and then save all their money because they don't live high.
Yeah.
So they have the money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one example.
Yeah, I think so. Somebody wrote in saying, that all cash can be deceiving because there's kind of creative ways that you can work with a lender to make it seem like you have all cash, but you don't. Like if you underwrite before you make an offer or something like that.
Sort of. I'd say that there are lots of ways to do that. People can put all cash offers on the table, and still finance it through like on margin against their equities, and people can there are people that take out family loans. I've had buyers do that too, where a family member will lend them the money at like a family-friendly rate. So that might come up as a cash deal. Brent, what do you think?
So in our space, I mean, I think I read an article, and it rings to be true for the last couple of years, that 1 in 5 buyers, and especially in Northwest, I think it's almost all of DC, are all cash buyers.
I think
The
you saw
sandbox
that
that we
on
play.
my blog.
Obviously.
I did a
Was it your
reel.
blog?
Yeah, I did a reel about that.
Yes, I mean, but I think that that's true, and I've always told sellers and buyers that for the last like 3 or 4 years, based on MLS stats, about 1 in 5 historically is all cash buyers. And the sandbox that we play in, we do a lot of developer work, and they're all cash. And to answer your question, Jamie, about kind of funny money in the back, a lot of times they have, whether it's, Bank of Georgetown or some reputable lender that will front them the cash up front, turn around and do a loan in the back, or it's
Right.
hard money lending or something like that. But developers go in with all cash, and then somehow they'll leverage what they have through another lender, hard money bank, or something along those lines.
So out of the 1 in 5 cash buyers, you guys think that the majority of them really do have all cash? It's not smoke and mirrors.
I mean, like
I think they have the cash. If they actually buy it with cash, I think they probably have, for instance, like we have a lot of developers that will buy something between 1 and 1.5. They have up to $2 million to show to the seller, like, hey, we can close all cash. The contract is all cash. And as a buyer agent, sometimes we'll put in the small print, last page of the contract, addendum of clauses, we'll put in there, buyer reserves the right to do financing. In no way is this contract contingent upon financing, and it will close on time. So that for some reason their preferred lender, Bank of Georgetown, or hard money lender or whatnot, can't get them the funds, they can and will close all cash.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and it's all anecdotal too. We just ratified a contract for a condo. The buyers, it's an all-cash deal, but the buyers are reserving the right to get financing through their private bank. They may or may not.
Yeah.
So, but I guess to answer the question, do they end up financing it later? Yes, some people do, for sure. People's circumstances change, and they decide they'll take out a small mortgage and, pay the interest and maybe take a deduction on that somehow as well. So, but I work with a lot of people.
I think the numbers are
definitely,
somewhat skewed too, right? Sorry, I think some of the numbers are skewed because if you're looking at 1 and 5, the 2 examples we just gave, on the contract on the first page, it shows all cash. It closes in MLS as all cash, but on the back end, there's some sort of a small loan given out, so that doesn't capture that in MLS.
Exactly. Number 9, what should you plan for closing costs and realtor fees? Would this be for the buyer or the seller? I don't know.
Let's do both.
Let's do both. Buyer. Well, today I was actually calculating one. I saw that it was a standard conventional 90% LTV, under $1 million purchase, and the grand total and no subsidies or anything. So the grand total with prepaids and the loan costs, all of the above, was around. It was almost 4%.
Wow.
For this one.
Yeah, because I would have said 3%.
Yeah, traditionally I usually tell people it's gonna be in that 3% range, but for whatever, it depends on the loan too. Some lenders will require more in prepaids, and at a time of year there could be a different credit going back and forth for the real estate taxes that might bump it up a little bit. But that was somewhere between 3 and 4%, depending on what kind of loan you have and what kind of premiums you're paying for your loan, if it's points or PMI or something like that.
Right. So it's 3 to 4% of the purchase price for the buyer. That's it. They don't pay the agent anything, right?
In 99% of transactions, the buyer isn't paying the realtor's commission specifically, but it's in the deal.
Right.
So there was a lawsuit or some kind of class action suit recently. It's all in. I see these headlines, and I didn't read the article, but it was something about misleading the consumer, saying buyers don't pay any realtor fees, but they do through the deal.
Right.
It's just not on their side of the transaction.
Right. So I think all they want to know is I should budget 3 to 4% of the purchase price when I'm buying. So that's buyers. Check.
Yes. And sellers, Brent, how would you answer that if a seller's like, well, how much should I expect to pay in fees?
I tell them 7.5%. So to your point, sellers are very quick, 7.5%. That's 6 to us, 1.5 or 1.45 to DC, and then 0.05 junk fees to the title company, all that. So I just round up to 7.5, and then I say 3%
those
to
junky
the
title
buyer.
company fees.
Those junk fees.
Yeah.
And then real quick, like when buyers ask me right off the cuff, it's like, I'm buying this place for 500,000. I quickly throw out 10%. I'm like, you need to close this for 550 inside and outside of the transaction to kind of recoup all of your costs. So just quick back of the napkin math. You need to be at 550 when you go to resell.
There you go.
So can you apply that 7.5% figure to also buyers in terms, because sometimes buyers are like, how much cash do I really need to buy a house? So if the closing costs are 3%, and then you have to have a minimum down payment of 3.5%, or is it 3 flat?
A minimum down payment. It depends on the size of the deal, but it's like, I guess there's some loans that are 3.5%.
Right. So that's what, 6.5%. So you have to have 6.5% of your purchase price in cash.
Right.
That's the bare minimum.
The bare minimum plus the income and
Yeah.
whatever. And again, depending on the lender and the credit, they might have X amount of dollars in reserve, and that's all specific to the borrower, the profile, and how they work that out with their lender. And I also have to add in, Brent, before we get all of our licenses taken away again, you said, I tell the seller it's 6% to me and my company, and 1.5%. Commissions are negotiable. There is no set commission in the land here. So I have to put that out there as a disclaimer, or else we get in trouble. We're not colluding here. There's no collusion. No collusion. All right. Number 10, what's something you should be working on 1 to 2 years away from buying? So you're 1 to 2 years away from buying a home. What should you be working on now in terms of your money or income? What do you think, Jamie?
Well, I think the anecdote that you had earlier was really important, that you have these buyers that have $1 million in cash, and it's because they haven't been living a lavish lifestyle. So I've seen, friends and other buyers who have really sacrificed and moved into a small studio together, and really done everything they can to try to minimize whatever the costs they have, all working towards this goal. But then also, like, you don't have to buy a house if you don't want to, you shouldn't feel pressure to do that. So yeah, I guess that would be my answer.
I think that if you really have that goal, if you decided you made up your mind that you can look that far ahead in the future, 1 to 2 years away, and you're like, I want to buy a house in 1 to 2 years, I'd say just save as much money as possible. You really have no idea what the market could be in that 1 to 2 years, so you might as well just have as much cash as you can to make sure that you have the money, and whatever cushion you might need according to your lender, et cetera. And that's the kind of person I am anyway. And I know not everyone can make a purchase of a piece of real estate in a city like Washington, D.C., where everything is very expensive, and then also have a ton of money left over too. I mean, we're all in different places, right? So I would just say I'm a saver type person. That's just my mentality.
Yeah.
So that would be the goal. Brent?
How I would answer that question, I would refer them to the lender. So I would say, you want to speak with your lender. Here's a person. See what you need to do financially. How much do you need to save? Do you need to work on your credit? Find out what you need to do to get the best loan program. From my side, I would tell them, you need to work on your knowledge base. Like, can you live in a 1-bedroom den? Can you live in a 1-bedroom? Do you like Adams Morgan versus Logan Circle? Like, really understand these different neighborhoods and what you want out of a space so that when the time comes, whether it's 1 year or 2 years down the road, you know exactly what you want. And you don't tell us as agents, which is irritating to me. It's like, oh, I'm approved to 500,000 and I can buy anywhere in the DMV. Well, that doesn't work for me because I'm not going to show you something in Rockville and then go down to Woodbridge and somewhere in between.
You
Like you
won't
really
do
need
it.
to fine tune it to a zip code.
I hear that. I definitely have my fair share of like usually first time buyers who they're giving me a whole list of locations. Well, we're looking in Columbia Heights and also Brookland, and then we like Hill East and also Arlington.
Oh my
It's like,
gosh.
what? Okay, so yeah. All right, I like this question. It's kind of an interesting one. What street names do you think add value? Okay.
I feel like we might disagree. I don't know.
Well, I'm just going to give a very classic real estate kind of answer. I don't really know if it's a street name, so to speak, but I would say that there are certain aspects of real estate that affect value no matter where it is or what street it's on. Like if you're buying a fee simple house, you probably don't want to be on, or if it depends on the price. If it's on a main road, a busier road, the price will not be as much as it would be on just around the corner on the quieter block. So
Interesting, yeah.
take your pick of busy roads like Mass Ave or North Capitol. Being on those streets doesn't mean they're not desirable. You could
Right.
buy a house on either one of those main roads, or it depends on the block of Mass Ave. There's some really beautiful blocks of Mass Ave, obviously in Capitol Hill, but it's not going to be as valuable as the quieter block around the corner.
Yeah.
What do you think about this question?
So I get really excited about like the small secret like side streets. And I don't know if that necessarily drives value, but it certainly I think drives interest. So like all of the squares that are in Capitol Hill, all the secret like kind of little back alleys, like really charming streets like Swan Street or Caroline or Corcoran, like all of those. I think anytime where there's a street that's hidden or really small,
You like that?
I like that. Yeah.
Brent, what do you think about street names?
I think Jackson Street in Brooklyn is amazing. I think
Yeah,
every home there
Jackson.
should be over $2 million.
Obviously. I think the values are getting close,
No,
actually.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think streets like in Capitol Hill, I always tell people there's a small quadrant like East Capitol, that's the main boulevard from Lincoln Park to the Capitol. A's, southeast or northeast, those are very desirable. 7th Street, there's two parks anchoring 7th Street and Capitol Hill. So I think not necessarily street name, but how they lay out in the DC quadrant, right? If it's one way going south and it's very busy, like 4th Street, one way going south and Capitol Hill's busy. 6th Street is one way going north, very busy. Maybe you want to look at 7th or 5th, or maybe you want to look at A or C or D or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's to Max's point. I think sometimes it's easier to talk about streets to stay away from than it is to
Mm.
which streets are pretty.
Yeah. And then maybe another example would be Georgetown. Georgetown's super villagey. Obviously, a
Yep.
lot of the streets are very quaint, but you probably would rather be on like the 1600 block of 34th Street rather than the 1300 block of 35th Street if you just know where these places are because of the traffic patterns and because of like the other businesses. Again, it depends on what the individual is looking for, what they have to spend, what they want to spend, etc.
Totally.
Number 12, where to find good listings for lower budget under 300,000. Under 300,000. I guess we're still talking about DC.
Yeah.
Brent, why don't you start with that? Where do you buy something for under 300,000 in DC?
Maybe Hubzu or Alex Cooper. Go to one of the auction websites.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, though, I tell people like I think going east of the river. So if you're in Anacostia, like historic Anacostia, I think you can find some really charming properties over there. It's going to need some work, even at 300,000. Hillcrest, but I think the city in general has not progressed eastwards across the river. I think that's the next horizon because I think the developers that I know of, they're trying to work with the city to go vertical like it is over in Roslyn. If that ever takes shape, then that's going to totally change the dynamics of Anacostia in general.
Well, I wrote an offer on a house in Congress Heights recently. It came on the market. These folks had bought it a couple years ago as a renovation project, and they decided that it was they had, I guess, I don't know what their lives changed. They had kids or they got new jobs, and they just decided they didn't have time to do it. They put it on the market, and I think it sold for over 500,000. It had like
Wow.
4 offers on it immediately. This is a house. I mean, it's a classic American classic house, like almost like a Foursquare type house, like a really attractive home on a block with other attractive homes and a nice yard. So it was like starting off good right there. And yeah, it needed all new stuff inside, but you're not going to find that for under $500,000 anywhere else in the city.
No.
So, and yeah, I guess if you're budgeting under 300, that's still very much from other zip codes in Northwest. You're looking at an efficiency apartment. I mean, we just sold one for $250 in Adams Morgan.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. So it is possible if you get a studio like in Adams Morgan. I would say Glover Park, maybe like Cathedral Heights area.
Sure.
Maybe like Eckington.
Maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, it's going to be a studio.
Yeah. I mean, the other
I
thing
think
is,
that's a great. I think that's a great point, Jamie. Going back to the Ann and Nate episode, that you've got to qualify the question, because 300,000, maybe they want urban setting, and you could buy a studio in DuPont Circle, but maybe they want a fee simple house and a nice yard. That's going to be totally different neighborhood.
Yeah, very much. What do you think the best holiday? Okay, wait, the phrasing. What do you think the best holiday to spend in DC? Let's figure out what the question means first.
I think there's a word missing. What do you think is the best holiday to spend in DC?
Thank you, Jamie.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm so literal. Read between the lines, literally. What do you think is the best holiday to spend in DC? What's your favorite holiday in DC?
I was thinking about this, and I had a really good Memorial Day this year. I feel like it's great to be like in the nation's capital for Memorial Day. Like, it feels really special, but it's not as overly crowded as like the 4th of July.
Fair enough. Brent, what's your favorite holiday in DC? You're always gone. You're just gone guy these days.
Yeah, I'm usually gone. Yeah, I think I don't know if this is a holiday, and maybe because I have 2 kids, 8 and 5, but Halloween. I mean, Halloween on Capitol Hill is something special.
There you
It's
go.
like they should really shut down East Capitol, because, like I said, from the Capitol to the park, people are having yard parties. I think there's 2 houses that used to have like haunted houses, but I mean, it's an all-out party, and it's insane, but it's in a good way. I think it's just a fun holiday for the kids.
I'm a huge Christmas guy. I just love being in Georgetown at Christmas time. I love putting up lights and my wreaths and walking around in sweaters. And I also like how it really gets really quiet around the neighborhood. And
yes,
I love when Georgetown sort of clears out in holiday season. So like there's less cars on the street. You're like, oh, they're gone. They're gone. Like right at that time between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. We're here with Jamie Manning from Exposed Brick DC, very well-known local blogger, doing a great job. Thank you for coming back to the show, Jamie. We're going to do a couple more questions here from her Ask Me Anything. What's the best area in DC for young couples?
I feel like we addressed that earlier.
Yeah, kind of hard to answer those questions when we have fair housing laws, etc. I don't think I'm a young couple anymore, but I like where I live. So,
well, I mean, I think the other thing, I mean, like, just to answer the question, and it's kind of dodging the direct question, but it's like, what do you guys like to do? So, like, go to these neighborhoods, explore certain restaurants. Do you like to go out to the clubs? But you as a young couple need to go out and experience different neighborhoods to see what you like the best, and from there we can decide, is it the Wharf? Is it Navy Yard? Is it Adams Morgan, Logan Circle, Shaw?
Yeah.
What neighborhood that isn't currently quote unquote hot do you think will see the biggest change in the next 5 years? Jamie?
I think we alluded to this too, that it's east of the river.
Okay.
But I mean, I think that those neighborhoods might be quote unquote hot already.
Right.
So I don't know. There's not a lot of options in terms of hidden gems.
That's very true. I think everything is sort of discovered in its own way, right? There's no, I don't know, 5 years it's kind of a longish horizon. If you're looking to buy somewhere and hoping for like a higher than average upswing in value, perhaps, it's hard to say like where you might land and again, what you're looking for in your current day-to-day lifestyle anyway. So, but yeah, I think that probably the most upside potential would be on the east side of the Anacostia River, just because the development hasn't all happened there yet.
Yeah.
All right. Blogs and accounts similar to yours for other cities. That's a you question.
I don't know of really anybody that would be a direct competitor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Street Easy is much bigger than I am, but I feel like they kind of started out in a similar way that I did, of an alternative to finding housing to Zillow. Zillow now owns them. I don't know if
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Whoa. That was a big sale.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was $50 million.
Not bad.
Yep.
Jamie.
So yeah, maybe one day.
What neighborhood, okay, similar question. What neighborhood do you think is still a hidden gem?
If that's even possible.
Right.
Second hardest. Yeah. Hidden gem. I mean, DC's not that big, you know?
Right.
It's like 4 square miles or something.
Yeah, when I think of hidden gem, I think of like hidden gems like being really specific. I'm like, oh, this place is a hidden gem.
Mm-hmm.
You drive by something like, I didn't see that before, like a business or a small cafe or something. We drove by, we went out to IKEA in College Park the other day. The kids are away at sleepaway camp. They both needed new dressers for their bedrooms. So I'm like, we're going to IKEA. I can't believe I'm doing this. I think I did it on a Saturday too. Like that's my Saturday night.
Yeah.
But we're driving down Rhode Island Avenue through Hyattsville, and we didn't stop at any of the places, but we found this place, and we Googled it. It's this little place called Little Minor Tacos, and it's like this. We need to go back there. That's all I'm saying. But there's all these kinds of places around the city that if you don't frequent these different avenues and places, you wouldn't even know they're there.
Right.
So, Brent, do you have any hidden gems in DC?
No, I was thinking more. I guess it's similar to the question about Kingman Park, north of Benning Road, but those are value plays, and I would consider those as gems.
Fair enough. Last question on the list here. Wallpaper in bathrooms, a trend or a staple?
I'm going to say staple.
Okay, staple. I have wallpaper in the powder room in one of the houses that I own. It's a staple. I'm going to go with staple. Brent?
I totally agree. I think it's a staple because that's the one room that's small enough where you can go crazy.
Exactly.
And, some wild wallpaper, and it's not going to distort the whole house.
Exactly.
I love that. It's like, I'm going to go with staple. All right, we did it. We did Ask Me Anythings. That was pretty fun.
That was fun.
Jamie, and I just want to thank you for coming out today. It's been a pleasure to see you, even though it's remotely. It's always a pleasure to see you remotely or in person. I love your blog, Exposed Brick DC. It's amazing. I think what you're doing is phenomenal. You're really teaching a lot of agents as well as new buyers, and I guess some sellers there as well. And as a token from Max and I is to say thank you. Is there a charity of your choice that we can help out?
That's really nice of you. And thank you for having me. Yeah, I would love to contribute to Habitat for Humanity, please.
Done deal. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at KeyedInPodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.